Welcome to the lecture of Vibrancy of an Entrepreneurial Ecosystem. I will explain during this lecture what an entrepreneurial ecosystem is, but also how the vividness, the dynamics, the vibrancy of an entrepreneurial ecosystem work. My name is Enno Mazurel and I'm a professor in sustainable entrepreneurship at the Vrije Universiteit in Amsterdam. Before we are diving into the content of this subject, we're going to watch a video. This has especially been selected for you, and well, take your time and go back to the lecture when you have finished the video.
An entrepreneurial ecosystem is all of the resources that surround entrepreneurs as they move their business forward. Ecosystem building is about getting those resources and folks in the community to work together by creating an environment of trust and collaboration, supporting big ideas, supporting people when they take risks, supporting people when they fail, creating that right culture that is ripe for entrepreneurial success. Because of the changing nature of our economy and our communities, we have to take new approaches in ways that will make sure that everyone has the opportunity to participate. Traditional ways of supporting entrepreneurs looked at the individual parts of an ecosystem. Ecosystem builders take a systems view. They put entrepreneurs front and center in that system and they say, how can I make our community more supportive of entrepreneurs of all types? So the role of an ecosystem builder is really a systems leader. It really takes leaders stepping up who care about the whole system and not just the individual parts of the ecosystem. Entrepreneurial ecosystem builders come from economic development, community development, libraries, universities. They come from different sectors. They could be entrepreneurs themselves. Anyone who cares about the success of entrepreneurs in their community. The challenge is that there's thousands of people that are working on building their entrepreneurial ecosystem, but they were doing it what I would call custom and bespoke ways. There's very little consensus on some basic elements. How do we create the environment in which entrepreneurs in our community can thrive? What are the processes? What are the steps? How do you build an ecosystem? How do you measure the health of an ecosystem? And I think as that practice of ecosystem building matures, it becomes more available to more communities. The only way we're going to figure out how to do this is to figure it out together.
Okay, welcome back again to my lecture on the vibrancy of the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And now that you have understood, hopefully, the concept of the entrepreneurial ecosystem, we can continue with my presentation. What is an ecosystem? The concept of the ecosystem we have borrowed from biology. In biology, the ecosystem stands for all the plants and living creatures in a particular area considered together with the physical environment. So basically, it's about the bees and trees and the birds, etc., how they combine, how they convene, but also how they interact with each other. And in the ecosystem from biology, we know that there are 4 essential elements in it: interaction, engagement, balance, domain clustering, loose coupling, and self-organizing. These are the basic elements of the ecosystem in biology. However, this can also be translated to the entrepreneurial ecosystem. The entrepreneurial ecosystem, in fact, in short, it is all the players and all the connections that are relevant for the development of entrepreneurship in a certain region. And my own definition of the entrepreneurial ecosystem is the whole set of players and connections that are relevant for the development of entrepreneurship in a certain area. Players can be the entrepreneurs themselves, of course, but also the Chamber of Commerce, the municipality, etc. And connections may be organizing catch-ups, workshops, etc. So this is the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and the same 4 elements of the biological ecosystem apply. When we're talking about vibrancy, vividness, dynamics of the entrepreneurial ecosystem, we can make an operationalization into 3 items, 3 factors. They can be density, fluidity, and connectivity. And density means how dense is the population of startups over a certain region. For instance, you can measure it in terms of the number of new ventures per 1,000 inhabitants in a certain region. Fluidity also indicates the growing companies, and we are especially interested in high growth companies because they create a lot of economic value that is relevant for society. Think, for instance, in terms of employment. And the third item of the entrepreneurial ecosystem, the third indicator that signals the entrepreneurial ecosystem is the connectivity. So the number of deal-making networks per entrepreneur. So how often they come together, but also the kind of deal-maker networks that exist. And very recently, also a student of mine said during an exam question, another indicator of the entrepreneurial ecosystem can also be the investment attraction time. So the shorter the investment attraction time is, the higher the vibrancy of the entrepreneurial ecosystem may be expected to be. Entrepreneurial ecosystem, sometimes people call it an innovation ecosystem or startup ecosystem, but basically we are looking at the same the same world when we're talking about innovation ecosystem, startup ecosystem, and entrepreneurial ecosystem. If you're more interested in going really in depth with the entrepreneurial ecosystem, I refer to the paper by Jacobidis et al., published in 2018, that really goes into depth with the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And there was also another paper that was paying attention to the attributes of the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So how does it look like? In the paper by Spiegel, 2017, 3 clusters of attributes are distinguished: social, material, and cultural. So social attributes of the entrepreneurial ecosystem is the availability of worker talent in the region, but also the availability of investment capital, for instance, in terms of venture capitalists and business angels, but also the existence of networks, how entrepreneurs collaborate. And also the importance of mentors and role models is emphasized here. And from my own research, I know that working with a mentor really contributes to the chance that you will be successful as an entrepreneur, especially looking for mentors that compensate for your weaknesses. So the social cluster of attributes. We also have the material cluster of attributes. So policy and governance is also a very important one. So the extent to which the government, the politics really support entrepreneurs, how making it not so complicated, for instance, to start your own company. Also, the availability of universities is very important in the ecosystem, because universities create a lot of knowledge. And every year again, new people come in and new people develop their systems and their enterprises when it comes to innovative issues. Okay, support services availability is also important, for instance, on a non-commercial basis by the Chamber of Commerce, but also the existence of consultancy companies in a certain region is very important. Physical infrastructure, also an important one, for instance, the proximity of airports, but also the public transport system within a certain region. And finally, also open markets. So to what extent do we really welcome entrepreneurs in the entrepreneurial ecosystem? And also cultural attributes are important for an ecosystem. So do we have histories of entrepreneurs going back for a longer time? Okay, the cultural attribute of entrepreneurial ecosystems mainly refer to the histories of entrepreneurship. So it's not an overnight thing that this region is active in entrepreneurship, but it goes back in history. And although going back in history may very often lead to situations that we are nowadays not really proud of, it's still relevant to look at the histories of entrepreneurship. For instance, in Amsterdam, we can go back to the staple market from the 16th century already. In the paper by Stengler and Bell Masterson, they mention 4 indicators that signal the entrepreneurial ecosystem vibrancy. So it's density, we already discussed that one. Fluidity, we already discussed that one. Connectivity, we already discussed that one. But they also said, these authors, that diversity is an indicator that signals the entrepreneurial ecosystem vibrancy. And now I have a question for you, my students. Is diversity an indicator that signals entrepreneurial ecosystem vibrancy, or is it a condition for entrepreneurial ecosystem vibrancy? You really have to think about this question, but I will already give you the answer. I don't think it's an indicator for entrepreneurial ecosystem vibrancy, but it is a condition for entrepreneurial ecosystem vibrancy, because the more different people work together, the higher the chance for innovation will be, in terms of people from different gender working together, people from different cultures working together, people from different academic backgrounds working together. So in my eyes, diversity is more a condition for entrepreneurial ecosystem vibrancy than a signal for it. And now I have a question for you that you're really going to answer. So after asking this question to you, you can stop the video for 2 minutes and discuss either in the lecture room with your neighbor for 2 minutes, or when we are online in a breakout room for 2 minutes. My question to you is, what is the major problem of a startup? So the next 2 minutes are for you and your neighbors. Okay, thanks for thinking about the answers to this question. I'm sure that we have a huge number of creative solutions, creative answers to this question. For me, the major problem of a startup is the lack of scale economies. For me, the problem with a startup is the resource poverty of these small and early bird firms. And then the next question is, and again, you're going to talk to your neighbor for 2 minutes, what can you do about the lack of scale economies as a startup? So the next 2 minutes are again for you. Okay, welcome back. So if we take the answer to previous question, the lack of scale economies, as a point of departure, we can also elaborate on the answers to this question. In my eyes, the most important answer to this question is collaboration. When you're weak, when you're small, there's always the use of collaboration, that you collaborate with other startups, for instance in incubators, in accelerators, or in startup programs. So collaboration is really a good answer to the lack of scale economies as a startup.